Okay, good afternoon. Let's please come to order and go on the record. I am Commissioner Kimberly Duffley, and with me are Chair Charlotte A. Mitchell and Commissioners Floyd B. McKissick and Karen Kimmerat. I will now call for hearing docket number E-100 sub 179, the carbon plan of Duke Energy Progress, LLC and Duke Energy Carolinas, LLC pursuant to session law 2021-165. On November 19th, 2021, the Commission issued an order requiring Duke to file an initial carbon plan and establishing procedural deadlines. On November 29th, the Commission issued an order extending the deadline for Duke to file its initial carbon plan to May 16th, 2022. On March 9th, 2022, the Commission issued an order scheduling hearings to receive public comment on the proposed carbon plan, including this virtual hearing today and the previous hearings in Durham, Wilmington, Asheville, and Charlotte. On May 16th, 2022, Duke filed its initial proposed carbon plan in this docket as ordered by the Commission. The following parties have been granted status as party interveners, and they are official parties in this proceeding. They are North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, Clean Power Suppliers Association, Carolinas Clean Energy Business Association, Clean Energy Buyers Association, Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, Sierra Club, Natural Resources Defense Council, Carolina Industrial Group for Fair Utility Rates 2 and 3, Carolina Utility Customers Association Incorporated, Fayetteville Public Works Association, Electricities of North Carolina Incorporated, North Carolina Municipal Power Agency Number 1, North Carolina Eastern Municipal Power Agency, North Carolina Electric Membership Corporation, Apple Incorporated, Google LLC, Meta Platforms Incorporated, Walmart Incorporated, North Carolina Port Council, NC Warren, Appalachian Voices, Broad River Energy LLC, RWE Offshore Wind Holdings LLC, Avangrid Renewables LLC, Person County, North Carolina, and the City of Charlotte, North Carolina. These organizations that have formally intervened as parties have had the opportunity to file comments and to file their own proposed carbon plans with the Commission. You may review the proposals and all of the comments and filings by accessing the Commission's website at www.ncuc.net and search for docket number E-100 sub 179. Do not put a comma between E-100 and sub 179 or you will not be able to pull up the documents. Anyone who wishes may file written comments with the Commission expressing their thoughts about the proposed carbon plan by accessing the Commission's website. So this brings us to the hearing this afternoon. In compliance with the State Ethics Act, I remind all members of the Commission of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest and inquire if any commissioner has any known conflict of interest with respect to the matter coming before us this afternoon. Okay, please let the record reflect that no such conflicts were identified. I now call upon the parties to announce their appearances, beginning with the applicant.
Chair Duffley, members of the Commission, Robert Kaler appearing on behalf of Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you, Mr. Kaler.
Nadia Luer appearing on behalf of the public staff.
Thank you, Ms. Lohr. Any other parties? Okay, hearing none, are there any preliminary matters to be considered? Any opening statements?
None on behalf of Duke Energy.
Okay, thank you. So before we begin this afternoon, I'd like to say a few words on the process we will be using. We appreciate your participation to voice your views on this important matter, and we welcome your testimony. Because the Commission functions like a court in this proceeding, We cannot respond to your questions, but rather we're here to hear from you and to receive evidence in the form of your testimony. If you have questions, please speak with the public staff, who is the party in this case representing you, the using and consuming public. There will also be Duke representatives available to answer specific questions you may have for them after the hearing. Because this is a virtual hearing, you may contact and coordinate these questions for Duke Energy through the public staff. As far as logistics go, when the public staff calls your name, you will be unmuted and you should hear a beep. I will then affirm you and I will ask you to state your name and address for the record, and then you may begin your testimony. The proceeding will be taken down by the court reporter, so please be sure to speak clearly and slowly. If you plan to watch a video of the proceeding via the YouTube, please make sure to mute your computer so there's no backfeed during your testimony. When you complete your testimony, the attorneys for the parties will have an opportunity to ask you questions, and then the commissioners will also have an opportunity to ask you questions. These questions are not meant to challenge you or embarrass you, but just to make sure everyone understands what you've come here to tell us. You'll each receive 3 minutes to give your testimony, which will begin when you start making your statement. And I'll let you know when your time is up. I'm going to be multitasking. You'll probably hear my phone ringer go off, and that's when you know you should probably be wrapping up. There's some leeway there, so I won't immediately ask you to quit speaking, but please do try to limit it to 3 minutes. And if you're one of the later witnesses, please try to avoid cumulative, repetitive, and redundant testimony. Also, if anyone is in need of an interpreter, there is one online. Ms. Lohr, with that, if you could please call the first witness.
Thank you. So our first witness is Chapel Hill Mayor Heminger.
Okay, Mr. Heminger, is that a Mr. or Mrs.?
And so the witnesses should be unmuted once I call their names and able to speak.
Is anyone on the line?
Well, let's try the next witness, and then hopefully we can get unmuted. So our next witness.
Sorry to interrupt, but the procedure is we're going to go by order of when they called in, not when we not off the list. It's the way we've been doing it. I hate to interrupt that because it's harder for us to keep this in order by name versus I can do it by phone number. So I can do we have call-in user number 2, and then we'll do I'll unmute them, and then we'll go from there. Is that okay?
Okay, so let me tell all the witnesses. So when you hear the double beep, please state your name that you're on the line. And then I'll affirm you. So Mr. McCoy, you want to unmute the first witness?
Hello.
Hello, please state your name.
Yeah, I'm William McNeil, and I live in Greensboro, North Carolina at 1014 Gretchen Lane.
Okay, Mr. McNeil, I need to affirm you. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do affirm.
Okay, thank you. You may begin your testimony.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. I'm a member of the Greensboro Earthquakers and the Greensboro Solar Now Coalition, who advocate for a rapid transition away from fossil fuels for generating energy in North Carolina. After reviewing Duke's carbon plan and following the stakeholder process, I find several aspects of the draft plan seriously flawed. First, Duke's plan slow walks the transition to clean renewable sources, relying too much on natural gas as a replacement fuel. The plan includes too little use of solar and wind power when cost of renewables are coming down, and battery storage can mitigate against the common assertion that the sun does not shine and the wind doesn't blow all the time, making these renewables unreliable. Second, Duke's use of fracked natural gas as a replacement for coal in older plants fails to account adequately for the extensive cost of methane. And I'm sure you're familiar with the role that methane plays in contributing to greenhouse gases. The plan also fails to account for the social and environmental cost of fracking in communities where it's done and along the pipelines that send gas to users. Methane leaks at drilling sites and along pipelines have serious impacts that the carbon plan does not address adequately. Duke's plan also fails to recognize in any substantive way the health and social costs of continuing the use of coal and natural gas. The Utilities Commission should require Duke to factor in the social cost of producing and transmitting their fuels using reputable, proven techniques. Duke's pricing models assume lower costs for fracked natural gas than are reasonable over time. We've now seen how Russia's invasion of Ukraine has jolted gas prices globally. While it's understandable that the carbon plan that was submitted in May did not reflect the impact of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, their models fail to recognize the volatility, the unpredictable wild swings in gas prices that are evident now and likely to continue. Duke's plan also underestimates the potential for energy efficiency and distributed load management measures to reduce future demand and peak loads, with more attractive, robust customer incentives available. We've seen the adoption of the Inflation Reduction Act, and with that adoption, customers in North Carolina and other states are likely to replace appliances and make energy efficiency upgrades to their homes at a far greater rate than the carbon plan contemplates. Lastly, Duke Energy and the Utilities Commission should pause these proceedings until the Inflation Reduction Act's energy provisions are analyzed carefully, both by Duke and the public staff. I urge you to postpone approval of the Duke's carbon plan until Duke addresses the serious flaws in the plan and factors in the impacts of the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, thank you for this opportunity to present my comments.
Thank you. And are there any questions?
None from Duke.
Hearing none, we thank you for coming and calling in today and providing us your testimony. You may be excused.
Thank you.
Mr. McCoy, the next witness, if you'll please speak up once you're on the line.
Good afternoon. This is Mary Abrams. I live at
Okay,
351.
Let me get you sworn, Ms. Abrams.
Okay.
So do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, if you'll please state your name and address for the record.
This is Mary Abrams. I live at 351 Luke Meadow Lane, Cary, North Carolina, 27519. I am the incoming president of the advisory board to Audubon, North Carolina, a state office of the National Audubon Society, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the organization. Audubon is a century-old conservation organization dedicated to protecting birds in the places they need. Birds serve as environmental indicators. We look to the birds to know how the environment is faring and what it might mean for us. Right now, birds are telling us we need urgent action on climate change. From rising seas on our coast to heat waves and stronger storms, the same things that threaten birds also threaten people. That's why we are engaged on the carbon plan and why I am here speaking today. We appreciate that North Carolina has made real progress on climate and clean energy. Last year, we had bipartisan agreement by our state leaders that we need to quickly and drastically reduce carbon emissions. And just last week, the President signed the historic Inflation Reduction Act into law, making it easier for utilities like Duke Energy to quickly and affordably transition to clean energy. And the Carbon Plan is our chance to make sure this happens. We have arrived at a huge moment for climate progress, and now the ball is in your court to make sure we do this right. Duke Energy's Carbon Plan makes some strides towards meeting the state's carbon reduction goals, but on the whole, it falls far short of the kind of action we need to meet the moment. We have several concerns. The first is that the plan remains overly reliant on fossil fuels, especially natural gas, at the expense of more clean energy. Recent history has shown that natural gas plants and pipelines are financially risky and bad for the climate. Alternative carbon plans filed with the Commission show that we can reach our carbon reduction goals by investing more in clean energy and foregoing new natural gas. Second, we need a plan that meets the 2030 deadline called for in state law. When it comes to climate action, every year counts. Third, we want to see more investment in our state's nascent offshore wind energy industry with responsible siting that protects wildlife. Lastly, the plan needs to include solutions that would make our energy transition just and equitable, ensuring that no one is overburdened by energy bills they can't afford. The current plan doesn't address this at all, and this must be changed. 3,787 of Audubon's members and ratepayers in the state have signed on supporting these comments. I'm hopeful you'll weigh all of the evidence, the scale of the climate crisis, and the many voices speaking up for a better carbon plan. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Abrams. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, you're excused. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Duffley, I now have the list in the correct order if you would like me to resume reading out names.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have Mr. David Mcgowan.
Mr. Mcgowan, are you on the line?
Good afternoon, Commissioner Duffley. I'm here.
Great. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is David Mcgowan, and my address is 210 North Person Street, Raleigh.
Okay, you may begin your
27601.
testimony.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Duffley. The other commissioners on the line today, thank you for the opportunity today. As I said, my name is David Mcgowan, and I'm the Southeast Region Director for the American Petroleum Institute. I'd like to thank the Commission for the opportunity to testify today, as well as the North Carolina General Assembly and the various stakeholders for the tremendous amount of work that was put into House Bill 951. API believes that climate policy should be done in a bipartisan manner, and this bill and this process can be a model for other states pursuing an efficient, fuel-neutral approach to greenhouse gas emission reductions. North Carolina has been a leader in decarbonizing its power sector, with emissions plummeting nearly 50% since 2005. Much of this precipitous drop was enabled by the switch from coal to natural gas. For evidence of this, look no further than Buncombe County, where the new state-of-the-art Asheville natural gas plant emits 65% less carbon than the coal plant that it replaced. Conversions like these have allowed North Carolina to make significant progress towards the emissions reductions targets laid out in House Bill 951. The new gas plants Duke is proposing to build will allow for accelerated coal plant retirements and help it meet the 70% reduction requirement. Beyond that, there are several options to further reduce emissions, including hydrogen blending and carbon capture and sequestration. API commends Duke's efforts to craft scenarios that address the three pillars of House Bill 951, namely reliability, affordability, and carbon reductions. All three are critical to the continued prosperity and economic growth in North Carolina and should be given equal weight as the Commission considers the proposals. As Duke considers to decarbonize its power generation, we believe natural gas has a unique and critical role to play in maintaining a reliable, affordable energy supply. With increasing amounts of intermittent generation on the grid, the availability of sufficient flexible dispatchable plants like those fueled by natural gas will be vital. As the North American Electric Reliability Corporation stated in its 2022 State of Reliability Report, quote, natural gas-fired generators are now necessary balancing resources for reliable integration of the growing fleet of variable renewable energy resources, end quote. Similarly, a recent study by PJM on the energy transition found that growing renewable penetration, quote, increases the need for balancing resources to meet forecasted ramping requirements, end quote. Plants like Asheville, which is extremely flexible, can provide these balancing services and also serve as a hedge against, in the unlikely event, one of our state's nuclear plants trip offline unexpectedly. With these proposed plans, Duke has joined the growing number of major utilities across the country who have recognized that investment in natural gas is a critical step on the path towards meaningful and lasting emissions reductions. Accordingly, we respectfully urge the Commission to consider it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. Sorry, I couldn't get that out.
That's okay.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, you are adjourned. Thank you for calling in today.
Thank you very much.
Ms.
And
Moore, the next witness.
Next, we have Jane Barnett.
Hello. This is
Hello,
Jane
Ms.
Barnett.
Is it Mr. or Mrs.?
Mrs.
Jane Barnett. Okay,
Mary
Mrs. Barnett.
Northrup.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
I'm Jane Barnett. I live at 900 River Road, Robbins, North Carolina, 27325.
Okay, thank you. You may begin your testimony.
Thank you for allowing me to comment. I'm Jane Barnett of Moore County, a retired math teacher and student of climate change. My 3 great-grandchildren will need a strong environment for many years in the future. I care deeply about the actions by this vital sector of our economy. No one should fail to notice that a climate crisis has begun. Record temperatures in many states and in Europe are evidence. North Carolina has a long coastline with rising sea levels and a warming ocean endangering homes and cities and the diverse wildlife under the sea. More damaging hurricanes from the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico have already caused flooding and loss of homes, especially in coastal and economically disadvantaged communities. The agriculture industry has been affected by the heat and by dry conditions, yet we continue to feed our fossil fuel addiction. We have a choice, action or an uninhabitable earth. North Carolina Law HB 951 urges reduction of carbon emissions, 70% by 2030 and to net zero by 2050. That only aspires to slow the damages. Key players like Duke have a duty to provide a major initiative or the warming will continue. The carbon plan Duke is proposing needs to recognize current and future realities and address them. The plan should promote energy efficiency, including for industrial sites. The grid should be strengthened, preparing for future electrical energy demands. Investments in solar energy should be a major part of the plan, and a wide use of rooftop solar encouraged to help strengthen the grid. Community solar could also enhance the grid. Offshore and onshore wind have great potential for North Carolina, but as proposed is even less than there was in Duke's IRP. not even using the leases Duke already has. And the plan should include transparency about both the costs and the emissions it causes. Currently, the plans are hardly reducing our fossil fuel addiction, and expenses are going in the wrong direction. As the last coal plants are retired, by 2030 as proposed, adding the use of pipelines to carry dirty fracked gas with their methane emissions and building new gas-powered plants will leave the ratepayers with years of debt for stranded facilities in the future. Duke has the power to make a difference. The proposed use of currently experimental hydrogen and small modular nuclear reactors should not be factored in without their full development and the costs found reasonable. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mrs. Barnett. Are there any questions? Hearing none, thank you again for calling in today, and you are excused.
Okay, and next we have, let's try Mayor Pam Heminger again.
This is Pam Heminger at 108 Boxwood Place, Chapel Hill.
Okay, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name and address for the record now that you've been affirmed.
Pam Heminger, 108 Boxwood Place, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, 27517.
Thank you, and you may begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Pam Heminger, and I serve as Mayor of the town of Chapel Hill. A letter regarding the carbon plan, which is signed by leaders from 7 other cities and counties across North Carolina and myself, was submitted to the Commission as an extension of my remarks here this afternoon. These local governments include Boone, Chapel Hill, Chatham County, Durham, Hillsborough, Greensboro, Matthews, and Raleigh. And as you know, Asheville, Buncombe County, and Charlotte have formally intervened in the carbon plan docket. I will keep my comments brief, and you can read the letter. As large electricity customers, local governments across North Carolina have enjoyed a long and productive relationship with Duke Energy. This relationship has helped in making our operations more efficient and improving our communities, and we look forward to continuing that collaboration as North Carolina decarbonizes. We love that word, decarbonizes. Many local governments have adopted goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in government operations and in their communities. This includes energy-efficient efforts transitioning to renewable energy, electrifying our fleets, and much other things. Local governments have also supported increased efficiency, on-site renewables, and transportation electrification in towns, cities, and counties. The town of Chapel Hill, for example, adopted a resolution in 2019 to create a climate action plan and to achieve an 80% clean renewable energy in the community by 2030 and 100% by 2050. The town also has a goal of reducing community greenhouse gases by 26 to 28% by 2025 and 50% by 2030, and reaching net zero emissions by 2050. Local governments are making steady progress on these goals in partnership with Duke Energy and other community partners. However, even with implementing everything possible within our control, we will not be able to meet our goals without significant and swift decarbonization of our electricity grid. Beyond meeting our goals, local governments have a vested interest in mitigating climate change to protect the health and welfare of our residents. Local governments are the first responders when climate disasters strike, and we must build climate-resilient infrastructure and provide public health services for those that suffer from health conditions exacerbated by climate change and economic disparities. Keeping this in mind, North Carolina's local governments urge the Commission to consider the following recommendations as you develop and approve our state's first carbon plan. Number 1, the carbon plan must reduce carbon emissions by 70% by 2030 and be carbon neutral by 2050, as set out in House Bill 951 via the cleanest and most affordable pathway for ratepayers. 2, the plan should base on more aggressive energy efficiency and demand-side management strategies to allow customers to save money and reduce emissions. This is of particular importance for our low-income residents facing a high energy burden. 3, the plan should rapidly reduce fossil fuel generation dependent on volatile fuel prices and not add new generation capacity that will need to be decommissioned before the useful end of their lives. 4, the plan should fully account for increased renewable energy procurement options for customers and include more distributed energy resources and storage. 5, the plan should prioritize commercially viable technologies through 2030. And 6, finally, we applaud the Commission's requirement of stakeholder meetings earlier this year, and we strongly encourage the continued opportunity for robust, inclusive, and effective stakeholder engagement opportunities during the implementation, evaluation, and updates of the carbon plan moving forward. Local governments can continue to be valuable partners to Duke Energy and the Commission, and we look forward to opportunities to collaborate. The carbon plan will fundamentally change the way electricity is generated, distributed, used, and paid for in North Carolina, and will have major impacts on the climate in our state and globally. The town of Chapel Hill and other local governments around the state are excited to continue our partnership with the Utilities Commission, Duke Energy, and other interested parties to create a carbon plan that benefits all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? And with that, thank you for calling in today, and you may be excused.
Thank you.
And next we have Kathleen Leibowitz.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
Kathleen Leibowitz, 1612 Oberlin Road, Apartment 2, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27608.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
I am the volunteer director for the nonprofit Towards Zero Waste North Carolina. Our mission is to promote waste-conscious living through inspiration, education, and action. One area we've been fortunate to expand is our youth programs, which includes youth volunteers, events, and grants. Through our work with youth, we have heard of the sadness, fear, and depression related to climate change. To quote our summer intern from UNC Chapel Hill, "Much of the damage done to our planet was from generations prior, but the responsibility of change still falls largely on me and my peers." I remember having a nauseous feeling in my stomach the first time I read that line as a member of the generations prior, like most of us in this hearing. Additionally, many of our adult volunteers like me are also parents who have become environmental activists out of concern for the future of our children. We are facing the inevitable truth that without drastic changes, we are leaving them a harder world to live in. As a spokesperson for Towards Zero Waste, I am here asking you to develop a robust carbon plan that not only meets the House Bill 951 deadline, but also includes protections for historically marginalized communities, places limits on new natural gas, and focuses on energy efficiency in addition to carbon reduction. While the current proposals are a start, it is through the implementation of a more comprehensive plan that the Utilities Commission and Duke Energy have the opportunity to make the morally correct decision for not only current North Carolina residents, but for future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you for calling in today. You may be excused.
Next is Jean Pudlow.
This
Okay.
is Jean. Hello?
Hey. Yes, can you hear me? Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Jean Pudlow, 203 Kemp Road West, Greensboro, North Carolina, 27410.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Today I will speak to two main points. First, The Duke draft does not take full advantage of the opportunity to increase renewable power sources, in particular dispersed sites of solar power. Extending the areas of investment in solar and removing obstacles to individual and corporate investors will aid the progress to a net zero carbon energy strategy. Second, switching to from coal plants to gas is disingenuous. The process of obtaining and transporting methane gas releases carbon in this form, which is more immediately damaging to the atmosphere than CO2. Investing in gas plants that could have a lifetime in excess of 25 years towards a goal of zero carbon in 28 years does not make sense when there are reliable, cleaner technologies available today. In 2019, we put solar on the roof of our home. We were happy to make best use of the panels, and it provides about 60% of our power. The next year, I joined with members of New Garden Friends meeting to put solar on our faith community's roof. There, we had excellent roof space for a solar installation, more so than Duke Power would let us use to install. We had members willing to financially support another 50% of power generation, even though it would go to other users. But Duke did not allow this. Removing this limitation could allow corporate and individual investors to generate clean energy for others to use. Several years ago, as you know, the NC Warren installed panels on the roof of Faith Community Church here in Greensboro, allowing them to pay back as they had energy savings. This third-party sale of electricity is used successfully in other states, but was stopped in North Carolina due to the Public Utilities Act. I urge NCUC to advocate for changing this rule that prevents power purchase agreements. This could help make solar power more affordable for schools, nonprofits, and churches in our state. These are just two examples of limitations on the solar power installations that could be changed to increase the capacity of solar in the state. Two other strategies could increase solar capacity in our state. My son lives in Washington, D.C., and he just had 16 solar panels installed on his duplex. He doesn't have the capital to pay for this up front, but instead his utility, Pepco, is paying him through solar renewable energy credits. Pepco is investing in dispersed sites by paying him a monthly amount related to the kilowatt hours he generates. This is part of their meeting their solar carve-out goals towards their renewable portfolio standard. For my son, those payments will be about $100 more per month than his cost of the loan to install his newly repaired roof and solar. How about establishing a solar carve-out for North Carolina and encouraging Duke to join other East Coast states and offer these credits? A second strategy is just making use of the space that's already developed in our state. Visited my daughter in San Diego, where I see solar panels on top of the parking lots at a high school. I see solar panels on the side of soccer fields facing south. I'd love to see Greensboro Coliseum parking lot covered with panels, or the Coliseum itself. Let's use those developed spaces in addition to the solar farms that are being built. On natural gas plants, I believe that it's short-sighted to switch coal plants to natural gas. Invest in renewables. We need to maintain nuclear, I believe, as part of the reliable part to make up for the renewables changing input. But I think we need to do heavier renewable energy. I encourage you to look at the Synapse report as submitted by some of the organizations mentioned at the beginning and found on your docket already, that provides a way to have lower cost, lower carbon energy. I know that renewables alone is not the answer to energy challenge for our world today, but I know they can be a more significant part of the answer than this draft plan suggests. I urge the Utilities Commission to be more aggressive in their net zero carbon plan than this draft provided by Duke Power. Use known technologies for a more aggressive no carbon goal. You are responsible to the current and future residents of the state. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Pudlow. Are there any questions? Hearing none, thank you for calling in today, and you are excused.
Thank you.
Next is Kay Reibold.
Yes, this is Kay.
Hello. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kay Reibold. I live at 4108 Yates Mill Pond Road in Raleigh, 27606.
Thank you. You may begin your testimony.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to testify here today. I strongly support and reinforce all the voices you've already heard this summer in opposition to Duke Energy's proposed carbon plan. As you've seen, there's been strong opposition in the public hearings here in North Carolina to Duke Energy's proposed carbon plan. The plan is deeply climate destroying, misleading, and unfair to ratepayers. Duke's plan emphasizes new gas capacity and misrepresents the need to expand gas while minimizing the benefits from solar, storage, and other climate protecting solutions. The plan, as you heard earlier in the testimony today, limits North Carolina's access to renewables. I, along with so many others, am urging the North Carolina Utilities Commission to reject the plan and develop your own plan, or use the plan that is now evolving with the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, the SELC, and other partners who are committed to a carbon reduction plan that will protect the climate, encourage energy saving, focus on distributed generation, keep rates down, cut coal ash and air pollution, and promote economic justice by addressing the climate crisis that disproportionately impacts low-income communities and communities of color. Duke's plan relies on unproven technology and does not address the destructive aspects of methane and other greenhouse gases on the environment. I'm urging the Commission to develop its own plan which authentically protects the climate and rejects any further reliance on new gas. Time will tell if the Commission will reject the Goliath greed of Duke Energy and fulfill the Commission's mandate by the Governor to develop a strong long-term climate plan that reduces carbon emissions, protects the environment, ratepayers, and environmental justice communities. Please listen to your conscience, listen to the science, and take action to develop a just and climate protecting plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, thank you for calling in today, and you are excused.
Thank you.
Next is Catherine Wizkowski.
Do you solemnly affirm that hello?
Hello, yes, this is Catherine.
Okay. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
If you could please state your name and address.
Yes, I am Catherine Wizkowski representing Sunnova Energy. Should I provide Sunnova Energy's address or my personal?
Yes.
Okay. Sunnova's address is 20 Greenway Plaza, Suite 475, Houston, Texas.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
Thank you. Sunnova Energy International is a leading residential solar and energy storage service provider with customers across the U.S. and its territories, including North Carolina. With the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, residential solar power will increase exponentially. Solar generation will curb emissions and will be a vital part of the energy mix. The net metering forecast for 2030 should be revisited to reflect the growing demand for solar generation that will come from the incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act and other government policies. Duke Energy's Grid Edge and Customer Programs Appendix Table G8 provides a forecasted number of customers enrolled in net metering and forecasted behind-the-meter generation. Duke concedes in Appendix G that as bundled product offerings are developed and introduced to customers, there will be more behind-the-meter solar adoption than is currently reflected in their forecast. While it may be hard to forecast potential adoption for programs in light of the Inflation Reduction Act, The current estimate is known to be lower than expected and misleading. Wood Mackenzie is working on providing revised estimates for solar growth, and we recommend Duke take their estimates into account. Having an accurate estimate is necessary for Duke Energy to sufficiently improve its distribution system, as well as allocate staff to appropriate departments as to avoid any delays in the interconnection process. Continuing, Duke Energy's Grid Edge and customer programs is vague on battery storage implementation for behind-the-meter systems. Duke should use resources like the Interstate Renewable Energy Council's Batteries Toolkit to create an easy battery interconnection process and ensure storage systems are being recognized for their full capabilities to reduce carbon emissions, improve grid reliability, and help meet the carbon plan's goals by 2030. Duke should more rigorously evaluate the opportunities provided by residential solar storage for grid reliability. Residential batteries should not be an afterthought as it is portrayed in Duke's exhibit. Additionally, aggregated behind-the-meter solar and batteries in the form of virtual power plants can significantly improve reliability and grid management, but they are not mentioned in the customer programs. To ensure the necessary amount of carbon-free energy adoption, Duke should be proactive with distribution upgrades and not reactive. The distribution upgrades needed should not be a cause-or-pay system. This type of system waits for a project that is connecting to the grid to trigger an upgrade before improving the distribution system. It also requires the project owners to finance the upgrade. Cause-or-pay upgrade systems increase delays and cancellations from residential customers. It is unfair for residential customers to be responsible for financing such upgrades since they are helping the state meet its carbon goals. To meet the state's carbon goals, Duke should also ensure there is a simple, streamlined process for interconnecting to the grid and continuously review and improve interconnection requests. Duke's Interconnection for Smaller Capacity webpage has a link to complete the interconnection request online application, but this link doesn't go to an application. It just leads to PowerClerk's homepage where people can learn about PowerClerk. It would seem the only way people can apply to interconnect is to print and fill out an application, except the website doesn't say how to submit this application. This is just one example of how interconnection is currently not a simple, streamlined process and will prevent Duke from meeting the legislature's carbon goals. If Duke is serious about the reduction of carbon emissions, the distribution grid and staff need to be prepared to quickly and efficiently interconnect the new behind-the-meter solar and storage systems. Delays in solar energy adoption for residents come from poor distribution system planning, upgrade cost allocation, and confusing interconnection processes. Additionally, batteries need more rigorous consideration, and Duke needs to acknowledge the role virtual power plants can play in reliability and reducing carbon emissions. I thank the North Carolina Utilities Commission for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, I do have one request. If someone from Duke Energy can reach out to Mrs. Wizkowski and talk with her about the webpage regarding the interconnection procedures, I'd like you to reach out to her and discuss those with her. Other than that, thank you for coming in and providing your testimony today, and you may be excused.
Yes, we
Thank
can
you
do
so
that.
much.
We will have someone reach out to her.
Thank you, Mr. Kaler.
And the next witness is Michael Totten.
Mr. Totten, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Yes, I'm Michael Totten, 224 West Ridge Farm Road, Asheville, 28804. I'm CEO of AssetsForLife.net and spent a half century immersed in promoting safe, secure, clean energy resources. And I represent pro bono clients in Western North Carolina, such as Warren Wilson College and Greenville Alliance. I'm here to affirm what many of the previous speakers have noted in their testimony. I do have 150 pages of assessment. I'd like to submit that. I tried to do that online and it wouldn't allow me, so I will submit it in written testimony. I want to make just several large key points, recognizing the time limits. The most fundamental point is that our society is in the midst of transformational change, both good and bad. And probably the one institution that has recognized this the most is the Department of Defense, which basically recognizes climate destabilization as a super wicked problem akin to a scale of vulnerability and threat of terrorism. That's why they have decreed that all military bases and installations shall move to distributed microgrids that are capable of islanding themselves when the grid or pipelines collapse and will be able to continue operating. The recognition is that they could be an oasis of operation while surrounded by civilian chaos in such an event. And it makes sense, total sense, for the civilian sector to adopt this military strength islandable microgrid model. National Rural Electric Cooperative Association calls it an agile fractal grid, where basically all of your buildings become nanogrids through behind-the-meter demand response, electrification of the at a high efficiency, such that, as we know from proven real-world results, you can achieve up to 80% reduction of supply and getting your on-site services through these efficiency gains. And then the remaining amount can be harnessed through on-site solar, geothermal, and storage batteries. What this enables is to then aggregate these individualized nanogrid buildings into neighborhood microgrids, cities effectively playing a new role as a mini grid, harnessing these microgrid neighborhoods. And now with the electrification of vehicles, they can serve as picogrids. They're interoperable, mobile, basically storage systems on wheels. This is a much more secure, safe, actually anti-fragile energy system compared to the centralized system of the last century. In fact, that's where the carbon plan is fatally flawed, is that it continues to rely on the centralized model, which regardless of the supply option, but particularly given the fact that Duke houses 10% of the nation's nuclear power plants, is extraordinarily vulnerable to cyber criminals, cyber attacks, physical attacks, something that is the big elephant in the room that rarely gets talked about. Going forward, all new investment expansion should move towards this military strength model, helping to finance and incent and assist all their customers in moving to these distributed island microgrids. I'd like to point out two things. First of all, the virtual power plants that have been mentioned. Duke's report on what can be achieved with efficiency is woefully underestimated. With the new breakthroughs in technological disruptive opportunities, we now know that up to 80% of energy services can be met on-site through efficiency and behind-the-meter improvements. We also know that in the case there's no more economy of scales for just doing large central plants, we now have the ability to do distributed systems like on our farms. North Carolina farms, just several percent of the existing cultivated land put into elevated solar photovoltaic panels known as agrivoltaics could provide the generation now provided by all of Duke's nuclear power plants and fossil fire power plants, and do it in a way that would help double the income opportunities for farmers. These elevated panels allow farmers to continue doing their cropping, their livestock grazing, and their pasture growing while they accrue additional income from the photovoltaics. It's called the new photonomy. It combines photovoltaics and photosynthetics. I have a number of recommendations, but I'll just reinforce one that a previous person noted. that the commission should require an independent carbon plan to be prepared based upon moving to this distributed model for the homeland real security that it provides, removing any opportunity for cybercrime, cyber attacks, physical attacks that would immobilize much of the state. I'll stop there, but again, I would like to spend my 150 pages of detailed comments on these and other points. And I thank you, Commissioner, for your opportunity to speak.
Thank you. And Mr. Totten, let's get that 150 pages into the record. I'm going to ask Public Staff Attorney Nadia Lohr. She has your phone number that that you signed up with. So she's going to call that phone number and work with you to have those 150 pages filed.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions? If not, thank you for calling in today. We look forward to receiving your written documents and testimony as well. And you are excused.
Thank you.
And next is Baron Northrup.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could please state your name and address.
My name is Baron Northrup. I live at 1 Stigall Lane, Asheville.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
Commissioners, I have a confession to make. When last I testified before you, I spoke with hope of a future in which I could enjoy our state with my grandchildren. As a young North Carolinian in my early 20s, that feels like a distant dream. But today, I admit to you that I don't think I can hold on to that dream anymore. The evidence of climate change has convinced me that it would be cruel to plan for children of my own. At the rate our planet is warming, the next generation is all but guaranteed to suffer. This is heartbreaking, but it is not inevitable. You are listening to me right now because you know it's not inevitable. Thank you for being present for this work. Prompt carbon reduction is crucial to averting this catastrophe, yet only one of Duke's offered scenarios achieves 70% carbon reduction by 2030, suggesting that Duke does not share my concerns. My dismay deepens at their intentions to continue burning coal through the 2030s, convert coal plants to gas instead of shutting them down, which is actually less efficient, and even increase gas capacity by a third. Gas is still fossil fuel. It does not offer progress. Duke has no interest in my future. They only care about money. A harsh accusation, but well proven by their long history of passing their fuel costs and financial losses onto their ensnared customers, as well as their fierce and dishonest opposition to private solar panels. The fact that this carbon plan requests a blank check without obliging them to actually follow through on any specific plan is also particularly telling. Locally here in Asheville, Duke is pushing to build a power substation right on top of one of the last forested spaces within our city. So I do not exaggerate when I say that your authority shapes the very landscape we will inherit. Our rich marine ecosystems, our expansive forests, our majestic mountains as old as time, our Carolina blue skies, these priceless treasures, which you have made your work to steward, are chump change to Duke Energy. It is not too late to spare our heirs and ourselves from the ravages of climate catastrophe, but the deadline has arrived and Duke is still stalling. At every opportunity, they iterate their willingness to burn this state to the ground to line their bloated pockets. They have failed you. They have failed me. They have failed the children it is no longer ethical for me to have. There is so much we can save of this place through the accountability you can exert. Thank you for using it wisely.
Thank you, Mr. Northrup. Any questions? Again, thank you for calling in today, and you may be excused.
Thank you.
Next is John Waite.
Hello.
Mr. Waite, hello. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could, please state your name and address for the record, and then you can begin your testimony.
My name is John Waite. My house is at 308 Red Oak Avenue, Durham, North Carolina, 27707.
You may begin.
Currently, I am experiencing the coolest summer I will likely experience for the rest of my life, hopefully another 40 or 50 years. I am absolutely in favor of retiring coal plants, but I have big concerns about the specifics of this plan. Instead of lining pockets of fossil fuel companies that have created and sustained this crisis, we should invest instead in the next vanguard of clean energy. If the API supports this plan, we should have serious concerns about it. I want to focus on the word used by the API, which is affordable. In a 2020 Lazard analysis, the lifetime costs when including subsidies of power are $31 per megawatt hour for solar, $26 for wind, and $28 for natural gas. Since that analysis has been performed, solar and wind have only gotten cheaper, especially with the recently passed Inflation Reduction Act, while the cost of natural gas has increased. Solar and wind power will continue to get cheaper, while the cost of natural gas will fluctuate, likely dramatically. Pitting North Carolina's costs and future on a volatile, dirty material when cheaper, more reliable, and cleaner options are readily available makes no sense given where we currently are today. If the committee accepts this plan without significant changes, in my opinion, it is only showing its corruption to everyone calling in today asking for a change and all of North Carolina ratepayers. I echo the calls from other callers for the commission to create their own plan that is more aligned with climate science and with current technology. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Waite. You may be excused.
Thank you.
And next we have Maren Mahoney.
Hello.
Hello. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could, please state your name and address, and then you may begin your testimony.
Certainly. My name is Maren Mahoney, and I live at 334 West Granada Road, Phoenix, Arizona, 85003. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Maren Mahoney. I'm speaking today on behalf of Ceres, a national sustainability nonprofit that works with the nation's most influential investors and companies to build a more sustainable economy. As part of this work, Ceres runs the Businesses for Innovative Climate and Energy Policy Network, a coalition of over 70 major employers, large energy users, consumer brands, and Fortune 500s, including many with operations, facilities, employees, and interests in North Carolina. We also manage a separate work group of more than 24 companies focused on enhancing opportunities for energy efficiency. We have submitted a letter regarding the carbon plan as an extension of my remarks, signed by 14 companies and organizations in North Carolina, including Biogen, Burt's Bees, DSM, Eileen Fisher, EQ Research, Gaia Herbs, Nestle, New Belgium Brewing, Novozymes, Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, Unilever, the National Association of Energy Service Companies, and Chambers for Innovation and Clean Energy. Our members recognize that climate change poses a significant risk to the long-term economic success of the business community. It threatens the health and livelihood of the people and communities in which businesses operate, and it disrupts the value chains on which they rely. Businesses are very interested in finding ways to systematically improve their emissions performance and to reduce emissions in our electricity and gas systems to save money and to meet our collective climate commitments. As a result, businesses support policies and programs that can help them, their supply chains, and their workforce to eliminate energy waste, reduce peak demand, and electrify their end uses. I thank you for this opportunity to provide input on Duke Energy's proposed carbon plan. I'd like to use the rest of my time to provide a brief summary of our letter's main points. First, 3 of the 4 proposed pathways by Duke Energy do not achieve the legislatively mandated 70% emission reduction requirements by 2030. Energy efficiency and demand response investments are unnecessarily capped, blocking residential and commercial customers from significant opportunities to save money and reduced greenhouse gas emissions. Renewable resources and energy storage are underutilized, limiting or delaying consumer adoption of renewable resources. Operations and new investments in coal and methane gas resources continue, posing a substantial risk to consumers in the form of volatile fuel costs and stranded assets. Offshore wind energy potential is vastly underestimated, unnecessarily hindering its correlative economic gains. Upgraded distribution and transmission should be an important part of the carbon plan, and all cost estimates and corresponding data sources and calculations should be provided within the plan. And finally, Duke's proposal lacks critical workforce development opportunities for a just and equitable transition for fossil fuel workers and communities. I thank you again for this opportunity to provide the private sector's perspective regarding the importance of North Carolina's carbon plan. And I thank you, commissioners, for your hard work and your leadership on these very important issues on behalf of all energy customers in the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, Mrs. Mahoney, thank you for that testimony today, and you may be excused.
So I believe that is all of the callers we had who were on our witness list. And I believe we have 2 additional callers who are unidentified. If you would like, we can have them unmuted at this time.
Yes, please. Okay, yes,
Yeah, I'm Peter Kroll. I should be on the list.
Peter Kroll. Okay. Well, whether you're on the list or not, we will hear your testimony. Let me affirm you first, though. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could, please state your name and address, and then you may begin your testimony.
Peter Kroll, 70 Garden Circle, Asheville, North Carolina.
You may begin.
Chair Mitchell, distinguished commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Peter Kroll. I'm the founder, CEO, and Director of Investments at Earth Equity Advisors. We're an Asheville-based registered investment advisory firm that has focused on sustainable, responsible, and impact investing for nearly 20 years and manage over $150 million for our clients. Not only does our investment firm invest in sustainable solutions like solar and wind for our clients, but my PhD-level scientist wife, Dr. Melissa Booth, and I have been living in houses with solar PV for the last 10 years or so, and our current home in West Asheville also has battery storage to complement our solar panels. We've been driving EVs for over 5 years and have a good understanding of climate change, the existential risk it poses, and the need to move quickly to clean up energy resources as soon as possible. I've joined today's hearing to urge the Commission to develop an independent carbon plan that will achieve the 2030 and 2050 emission targets established by HB 951 at least cost and least risk for the sake of North Carolina businesses and households. Duke's proposed carbon plan does not meet that standard. Among other shortcomings, Duke's proposal includes investments in new methane gas generation, which would require additional costly infrastructure unlikely to be constructed and available on necessary timelines. Duke's proposal also unnecessarily extends the operation of coal generation well into the 2030s, prematurely caps investments in energy efficiency, the least cost resource, and forces the state to rely on speculative technologies like small modular nuclear reactors and zero carbon hydrogen that are not yet proven in the marketplace. Analysis conducted by Synapse Economics demonstrate that there are alternative pathways that will achieve emission reductions faster and at a lower cost than Duke's plan. This suggests that the utilities proposal is not in the best interest of North Carolina ratepayers or the state's business community as a whole. Instead, the Commission should look to the modeling and comments filed by the Clean Interveners, North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, SELC, NRDC, and others for guidance on low-cost pathways to achieve emission reduction targets on schedule. Among other key takeaways, that modeling demonstrates that cleaner, proven technologies like solar, wind, and battery storage are some of the most cost-effective options to achieve our goals.
It also validates that energy efficiency can and should be the primary building block for a cost-effective pathway to reduce emissions in the coming years. Finally, the modeling shows that given the cost-effectiveness of investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and storage, there is no need for an additional build-out of methane gas infrastructure to meet our targets. While there will be opportunities to revisit and update the carbon plan in the future, the plan the Commission develops now will be critical in driving the right long-term investments to get North Carolina on the path to meeting its emission reduction targets at least cost. And many others in the North Carolina business community are relying on the Commission to take the clean interveners modeling into account when developing its plan, and not to accept the flawed Duke modeling, where the company clearly let their own interests influence their proposal instead of allowing the model to objectively pick the best pathway. I thank the Commission for its consideration and trust that its final carbon plan will set North Carolina on a trajectory to meet our emission reduction targets at the least cost and the lowest risk to businesses, ratepayers, and citizens of this great state. Thank you for your public service.
Any questions for Mr. Kroll? Hearing none, thank you for calling in today. We appreciate it, and you may be excused.
We have one more witness.
Hello? Is anyone on the line?
Yes, this is Nancy Carter.
Hello, Ms. Carter. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could, please state your name and address.
Nancy Carter, 1401 Cavendish Court, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28211.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Carter. I'm elected to the Soil and Water Conservation District here in Mecklenburg County, but I speak as a private citizen. I'm also a former member of the Charlotte City Council, a Sustainable Energy Action Plan participant, and part of a volunteer group monitoring the goals and achievements of the city's CAP efforts. We're convinced that neither the 2030 nor the 2050 goals approved by Council are achievable at the current governmental, institutional, and private level of funding, focus, and fundamental commitment. A major part of this view is formed by the reliance of all of these entities on energy, mainly the power provided by Duke Energy. If Duke does not move forward more rapidly to non-carbon emitting fuel, no other entities will be successful. Looking at the current movement to electric transportation from fire trucks to school buses to shuttles, the demand for Duke Energy services will undoubtedly increase. Senator Joyce Waddell stated in her newsletter, there is a plan to eventually burn a mix of natural gas and hydrogen in its proposed new gas plants, a technology Duke Energy planning documents assume is at least a decade away. Two major points. A decade away is 2032, not 2030. A mixture of natural gas and hydrogen is still environmentally damaging. The latest restrictions on EPA's carbon emission standards will be damaging to any business concerned with their bottom line. The temptation will be not to take the expedited action demanded by the goals the government and the public have endorsed. We applaud Duke Energy's outreach to the general public to install solar panels, but wish limitations to be lifted. We applaud the state's affirmative action in this area of environmental responsibility, but the urgency is upon us. The condition of the atmosphere is confirmed to be causing the waves of heat and consequent wildfires, of increasingly violent storms or droughts. We're in worsening cycles, and we all desperately need Duke Energy to lead the push to non-carbon producing power. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Are there any questions? If not, you may be excused, Ms. Carter. Thank you for coming and testifying today.
Thank you.
Any other witnesses that have appeared, Ms. Lohr?
No, I believe those are all of our public witnesses today.
Okay, thank you. And is there anything that needs to be done before we adjourn? Any other matters we need to address? Mr. Kaler, Ms. Lord?
Nothing from Duke.
Nothing from the public staff.
Okay, hearing none. So this brings us to the conclusion of this afternoon's public witness hearing, and we will stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.